Before we get officially started with the course, there are a few things I need to mention and clarify. First of all, this is purely a basic introductory course to PHP. It is not going to be an intermediate level or an advanced level or anything like that. This is purely for beginners. So if you're new to PHP, this course is going to be perfect for you. Second, for WordPress, ideally you should be an intermediate level user of WordPress. You can't be a complete beginner. You need to have an intermediate level knowledge of WordPress. You should be comfortable working with WordPress in order to take this course. Now, there are two main websites we will be using. One is php.net, which is the main official website for PHP. Second would be the WordPress Codex, which is the main repository for all functions and anything pertaining to WordPress development. So you can bookmark these two pages. Now, if you're working locally on your computer or on your Mac, you don't need FTP access, you're fine. However, if you're trying to work on a website that's live on the internet, you're going to need FTP access because we're going to be working with our theme files. We will be using the WordPress 2021 theme, by the way, the official 2021 theme. So in order to access the theme files on the server, we're going to need FTP access. If you don't know how to create an FTP account or how to get FTP access, I do have a full tutorial here on YouTube showing you how you can do that. Now, I'm also going to be using Notepad++ as my text editor. We're going to make changes to our files and then upload them back. So I will be using Notepad++ for that. Again, I do have a full tutorial here on YouTube showing you how you can work with Notepad++. But if you have another text editor you're working with, maybe like Sublime, for example, you don't have to use Notepad++. It is not compulsory at all. And then last but not least, I do have a full course about WordPress theme development. It's available on the webmonkeyacademy.com. It's also available on Udemy. In fact, my main purpose of making this short free course is to introduce you to WordPress development, and then in the hopes that if you're convinced that, hey, I really want to become a WordPress theme developer, you can then sign up for the more advanced course that goes a lot deeper into WordPress theme development. So you can check it out if you're interested. And then there is one thing I forgot to mention as I was making the course, and that's because I took it for granted, and I don't want to take anything for granted, okay? PHP files, you end them with .php. For example, right here, you can see all these files right now, 44.php, archive.php, footer.php, and so on. These are PHP files. So you end your files, your PHP files with .php. And then finally, you open up a PHP code with the less than symbol, question mark, and then PHP. So right now, this would be the opening of any PHP statement. And then down here where you have the question mark and then the greater than symbol, that's when you're closing the PHP code. So you have to open up your PHP code and then close it to avoid any theme breaking. So I forgot to mention this during the course, and it was only when I was going through the videos I realized that, oh, I forgot to mention this very, very simple fact, but it's important that I need to mention it because it's something people can take for granted. So that's it. I hope you enjoy the course. Let's now get started officially with the Learn PHP for WordPress course. Okay, so let's start by talking about what PHP actually is and what it does. And PHP stands for the Hypertext Preprocessor. And what it does is that it actually retrieves data from a database. So basically, it is a server-side scripting language. And that's what separates PHP from other languages like, say, JavaScript. Most other languages will do their job on your computer or on your browser, but PHP does its job on the server side. So if you're trying to access data from a server, maybe it's a web server or a database server, you would use PHP. If you're trying to send information or data to a server, PHP will also be involved. Now, I would highly encourage you to bookmark this particular website. It's called php.net, and it's the main website for everything related to PHP. You can take a look at the documentation and a lot more information there about PHP. So how does PHP actually interact with WordPress? What's the relationship? I don't know if you've noticed this before, but whenever you install WordPress, typically you would also create a database as well. It depends on how you install WordPress or what hosting panel you use. But in my case, I use SiteGround, and when I try installing WordPress from the backend, I always have the opportunity to name the database table and do things like that. So when you install WordPress, you're also creating a database as well. Now, it is in your database where most of your files are stored in. your pages, your posts, your user data, passwords, all those kind of information is stored in your database. Now I'm going to give you a live example in here. I do have one of my demo websites, the moviecharacters.com. It's just a sample blog with some sample posts and things like that. Now I'm over here on SiteGround, the backend for SiteGround. You can see I do have the website moviecharacters.com. Now I've accessed the database, and this is the database right here. The name is Ameri618_WP329. Okay, I'm going to expand the database, and right now you can see I have access to different kinds of tables. And even from the name, you can kind of tell what they're about. Down here as an example, you can see I have the all the way down here. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, it was right up here. Okay, WPDE_posts, right? You see this table right there? I'm going to open it, and I'm going to show you some stuff. If I go over to my website right here, you can see I have posts related to movies and games, Titanfall review. You can see I have Kangaroo Boxer Trailer hits the web, Legion makes 900. I have tags like Action, Terminator 2. I do have a post about Terminator 2 as an example. If I was to go to my database right now, can you see the post titles in here? You have Box Office Numbers Rising, Terminator 2 review, A Quiet Place review. There's another one here, Terminator 2 on its own, and so on. So right now, you can begin to see the titles of the posts that I have. You can see the post date, the actual post content itself. And then if I scroll over here to the right, you can see other information like the published status, whether it's published or in draft mode, the comment status, whether comments are allowed or not, if the post has a password that you need to use in order to access the post name, and so on and so forth, post modified, and a lot more information. So right now you can see that all this information is on the database. If I go back to my database and I opened up another table, just to give you another example, down here, users, WPDE_users, that should tell you that this table contains the user information, people who have accounts on the website. So right now you can see I do have two login IDs, movie and developer. You can see the emails, and you can also see some other information about the particular user account. So the whole point here is that whenever I try to do something on my website, or anybody tries to do something on my website, say for example, they clicked on Bruce Willis words for the 5th time. In order for WordPress to be able to display this post, display the featured image, the title, the content, and so on, it has to go to my database and pull the information from there using PHP. Now, how WordPress knows what content belongs to what post is through the ID. All your posts have IDs. I'm not sure the post ID for this particular post, but check this out. We can actually find out. If I was to go back to the posts table and I searched for Bruce Willis words for the 9th time, let me scroll down here and see. Okay, it's down here. You can see the ID is actually 59. So when I clicked on the link for that post, WordPress knows that, oh, the ID for this post is 59. Let me go to the database using PHP and search for the content for the post with the ID of 59. That's basically the relationship between PHP and WordPress. So once again, PHP is used primarily to pull information or send information to a server. It's server-side scripting language. It does its job on the server side. And that's what separates it from other languages like JavaScript. Most other languages will do their job on your browser. PHP does its job on the server side. So in the very next video, I'm going to show you a lot more about the relationship between PHP and WordPress and how PHP is actually used to create different kinds of functions in WordPress. So now let's talk a little bit more about how PHP is used in WordPress. Now I've switched things up a little bit. I do have another website in here, another sample website. And right here, let me just quickly show you, I do have one post. and it's titled PHP for WordPress, and it's a typical WordPress post with a title, featured image, and some content, okay? And then down here, you can see we have the category of dev tutorial and some other information. Let's go back to the back end. I also have a page called recipes. Let's view the page, and that's the page right there. Okay, I am using the default WordPress 2021 theme, by the way. Now, I'm going to go over to my text editor in here, Notepad++, but I'm connected via FTP to my 2021 theme. And you can see we've got the files right here. And the first file I have opened in here is the functions.php file. This is basically where the vast majority of the functions used in your theme are located. Now, if you scroll down in here, you'll begin to see different kinds of things like array. You'll see names of functions. You will see if being used a lot. If, else, while. All these are PHP. Okay, you can see down here array. In here we have another function. If is customize preview, do something. Right here you do have the function for creating and registering a sidebar. You can see right here it says register sidebar, and then the array basically has different kinds of information about that sidebar, like the name, the ID, the description, and so on. Okay, let's move on. You now have the index.php, and this is easily, quite possibly, the single most important file in any WordPress website or in any WordPress theme. The reason being that this is typically the main template file that WordPress uses to display content on a page. Now, WordPress will use this particular file if there isn't any other file that is higher in the template hierarchy. What I'm trying to say here is that how does WordPress know how to display contents of a page and then how to display contents for a post? You know, those are two different post types, right? Well, here's the thing. You do have a file or a template file here called page.php. This is typically used for displaying pages, okay? Now, to prove it to you, I'm going to do something right here, okay? Right here at the very, very top. I'm going to say this is a page, and I'm going to save this change. Note I'm saving it in the page.php file. Now, if I was to go back to my website, this right here is a post. Remember, PHP for WordPress is a post. If I refresh the page, if I refresh this post, you can see right now we don't see this is a page statement, right? But if I was to go to my back end and I viewed the recipes page, let's view the page. Right here, you can see right now it says this is a page. That's because WordPress, using the template hierarchy, knows that, okay, this is a page. It checks to see, is there a file called page.php? Oh, there is a file called page.php. Let me now use that template to display the contents of the page. And because I went to my file right here and I added this as a page, WordPress outputs this is a page. Okay, so going back to the whole template hierarchy thing, if page.php did not exist in my theme, WordPress would use index.php. It's kind of like the fallback option. It's always the fallback option, whether you're displaying posts, pages, or even content from other custom post types. Index.php is always the last option if there isn't any more specific file. Now, you've seen page.php displaying content for pages, right? Let me remove this comment right here real quick. Let's cut that out. Let me remove my space. Let me save this. Now, the file that is being used to display contents for my posts is the content-single.php template file. Now, right here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I am going to paste the same content and I'll say this is a post. Let's save this. And as you can imagine, I'm going to go back to the backend right here. Now I'm going to refresh my page. You can see nothing is showing up. But if I was to go to my post right here and I refresh the page, or the post rather, you will see that that did not display. Let me go back and see what happened. This is a post. Okay. Let me just make a quick change once again. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Okay, so it definitely saved right now. So if I was to go back and I refresh, I think it should be down here actually. It should be around here. Oh, this isn't the main. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. This is the home page. This isn't actually the actual post page itself. This is the home page for the website. So if I was to now go to PHP for WordPress, the actual page itself, now you can see it says this is a post. I'm sorry, I do lose my train of thought when I'm recording. It's not easy. Okay, so but right now you can see it says this is a post specifically for this post right here. Okay, whew, that was close. I'm going to go back and I'm going to remove this. Okay. And once again, WordPress is of course using PHP to pull in all this information. Now, there is something else that you should be aware of when it comes to PHP and WordPress. There's this thing called template tags. Template tags are kind of like pre-built PHP functions that are used to display certain kinds of information. One of the best examples I can give you is right here in this template file, the content-single.php. See, here's the thing. WordPress is displaying, let me just refresh this page. WordPress is displaying the title of my post, right? It's displaying the featured image. It is displaying the content. And then down here, it's even displaying the publish date, the author, and even the category of the post. How does WordPress know how to do this? That's because of something known as the template tags. The template tags are pre-built functions that display certain kinds of content dynamically. I'm going to prove it to you. If I was to go back to the template file right here for our posts, do you see this thing right here called the title? PHP the_title. This right here is a template tag used specifically for displaying the title of our posts. That's why we have the title showing up. If I was to go right here right now and I remove this, let's just cut it out and I save. If I was to go back to my post and I refresh, you can see right now the title is no longer there. It's gone. That's because we removed the template tag. Let me go back and I will undo what I did. Let's add another template tag right here. We're going to display the category of the post just beneath the title. And how can I do that? I can make use of another tag known as the category. It really is that straightforward. So if I was to go right here and I change the title to the category, and I saved, okay, I'm gonna go back to the post file right here, refresh the page, and right now you can see we have the category dev tutorial. That's basically what template tags are. There are many template tags, and in fact I should have opened up a page to show you what the different WordPress template tags are. And I've opened them up, and I didn't want to do it live because my internet here is pretty bad. So I had to pause the video, open up the page, and here it is. So if you go to codex.wordpress.org/template_tags, right here you can see so many of them. You have the general tags, get header, get footer. Let me show you those, by the way. If I was to go back right here and I go to page.php, actually let's go to index.php. This is the main template file right here. I'm sorry, not index.php, page.php. Let's stick with page.php. You can see right here it says get header, get header, and then down here it also says get footer. These are functions that pull in the header of the website and also the footer of the website. Now, if you look over here to the right, in my theme folder, I do have the file called header.php. It's a file right there used specifically for displaying contents in the header, which will typically be your logo, as well as your main menu. Now, if I was to go up here and I did the same thing and I said, this is the header, and I save this file, as you can imagine, if I was to go back to my page, now because the header is global, the header is on every page, on every post. If I refresh this page right now, you can see right up there, it says this is the header. If I was to go to my post and I refresh, it also says this is the header and so on. Now, likewise, you also have the exact same thing for the footer.php as well. So these are functions that will pull in pages. Header.php, footer.php. You'll come across them a lot more as we progress. Okay, let's go back to the template tags in here. So you have other ones like, get the sidebar, the login form, archives, author information, category information, comment tags, and so on and so forth. You're more than welcome to spend time going through all these tags if you wanted to. But that's basically it for WordPress and PHP. Again, as you progress in this course, you'll begin to understand more of the relationship between PHP and WordPress. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Let's now talk about how to write PHP code properly. In other words, we're talking about PHP coding standards. And I do have quite a list in front of me, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about would be how to name your functions and your variables. And in here we have a classic example. We have the function 2021 or widgets underscore init. The job of this function is to register a sidebar, but notice that the actual name of the function is widgets underscore init, but they start off first by saying function. So we have function, and then you want to add a prefix before the name. The prefix in this case is a 2021, and the reason why you want to add prefixes to your function names is because there could be another plugin somewhere on your website that uses the same function, and if both your theme and your plugin are using the exact same name for the function, you could end up having a conflict. So to avoid that, it's best you just use your own unique prefix. It could be the name of your theme, it could be your own name, it could be anything. Just have a prefix before the actual function name. Next would be the use of dashes and underscores. When do you use them? Typically, you would use your underscores whenever you're naming your functions or your variables. In this case right now, with the prefix, we have 20 underscore 20 underscore 1 underscore widgets underscore init. So you would use underscores to separate words whenever you're naming your variables or your functions. You would use dashes when you're trying to add a CSS class. In this case right now, down here you can see it says h2 class equals widget dash title. So when you're adding classes or IDs, you would use the dash. You would also use the dash whenever you're naming your files. In here in the content folder, you can see we have files called content-excerpt, content-none, content-page, content-single. That's when you would use your dashes. Don't worry, as you work more with PHP, you'll get used to when to use the underscore and when to use the dash. All right, next would be the use of single quotes and double quotes. Now, right here, I have the example. We're basically echoing a statement. I am sorry, this is the header of the page. Now, one way I could rewrite this would be to simply say, I am sorry, this is the header of the page, okay? However, in most cases, you would typically use the single quote. Single quotes are used a lot more often than double quotes. Now, this is the ideal way you would write this kind of code. Echo, single quote, and then the HTML code, I am sorry, this is the header of the page. But what if you wanted to use the short form of I am? So right now I say am without the A. You can't have a single quote inside of another single quote. It will break the entire code. So what you could do in this case right now would be to wrap the single quote inside of double quotes. So right now you can see, oh, sorry about that. Right now you can see I am using the double quotes to wrap the single quote inside of it. Now the code would work. You can't have a single quote inside of another single quote, and you can't have a double quote inside of another double quote. In most cases, the double quotes are actually inside of the single quote. The reason why it's the reverse here, where you have the single quote inside of the double quote, is because this is English. When you write I'm sorry, you don't use double quotes. You typically would use the single quote. However, if I was to go back to my functions.php right here, notice when we're adding the title, the h2 class equals widget-title, the name of the title is in double quotes, while the actual HTML code is wrapped in single quotes. So once again, you can't have single quotes instead of single quotes. You can't have double quotes instead of double quotes. And in most cases, the double quotes would be inside of the single quote. You would only use a single quote inside of a double quote when you're trying to write sentences like this in English. I'm sorry, I didn't, shouldn't, stuff like that. Okay, next would be the closing PHP tag. Now, in most cases, when you open up your PHP tag, you should close it, right? However, don't be surprised that you may see some files where all you see is the opening PHP tag, but you never see a closing PHP tag. Here, for example, in the page.php, we have the opening PHP tag, but there is no closing PHP tag right there. That's because there is no need to do so. In fact, PHP is one language where you can open it up, add code, and you never have to close the PHP tag. You could only close the PHP tag if within that block of code you want to add code from another language, maybe like HTML or JavaScript. In this case right now, everything in here is pure PHP code. There is no HTML, there is no JavaScript. In fact, if you go to your function.php file, at the very end, maybe some themes might not do this, but the vast majority of themes, the function.php file, you will never see the closing PHP tag. Nah, it's just going to be right there, empty. Now, this was the opening PHP tag right up here. And you can see right now that we've had several functions. There's a function right here. There's another function right there. Another function, all the way down until we wanted to add a JavaScript code. That's why we closed that opening PHP tag right there. We added our JavaScript code. Once that was closed, we then opened up the PHP tag again until down here once again. So in most cases, it's safer to just open and close your PHP tags, okay? But don't be surprised if you do see files where there is no closing PHP tag. Okay, the last two would be indentation and comments. So if you've worked with HTML code before or CSS code, you're already familiar with this concept. Make sure your code is well indented so that it's very, very easy to read. As an example right now, you can see this function to register the sidebar. You can see how it's all indented. I know that this right here, this is a block of code for registering a sidebar. And then right here, for example, you can see how you have the main array up here. And then inside of the array, you have the child arrays with all the properties and values. You can see how everything is laid out properly. So keep that in mind. And then let's talk about our comments. How do you add comments in PHP? Comments are a great way to add commentary to describe what a function is doing. So the ideal way would be to have the / and then your asterisks, and then you have your comments, and then to close the comment, you would have your asterisks and then the / again, like in here as an example. Okay, that's how typically you would write your comments. You don't need to use the single asterisk symbol before the actual comment. It's not necessary, but a lot of WordPress users prefer to do it that way. So if you want to stick to the original standards, by all means you can do that. So that's pretty much it. There are still a few other coding standards that you will come across, but these are the most important ones that I've covered so far. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Now, before we begin writing proper PHP code, I want to quickly cover one very, very important topic, and that is how to combine HTML and PHP in the exact same file. Now, I'm going to use the title template tag as an example. Let's say we want to display the title of our post, but using the h1 tags from HTML. The easiest way would just be to open up the h1 tag first of all, and now open up PHP and say the _ title, close it up, and now close the h1 tag. All right, I'm going to go ahead, save this, and let me come back in here, refresh my page. And there it is, PHP for WordPress, very, very straightforward. Let me walk you through what I did. So the whole point here is that we want to display the title in the h1 format. So we opened up HTML first of all with the h1 tag. Now we opened up PHP, added the template tag, the title, then closed it, then we closed the h1 tag, and that's exactly what we got. This by far is the easiest, most straightforward way of combining HTML and PHP. Whenever possible, make sure you have your PHP code inside of your HTML code. It's very, very straightforward, and it's the easiest form of syntax to work with. We could do the reverse, where you have the HTML code inside of the PHP code, but then you would use echo or print, which are functions on the PHP. But in all honesty, I don't even want to cover that because it gets a little bit tricky and it can be very, very messy. However, there are certain situations where you can't avoid having HTML code inside of PHP code. Now, I've actually created a function in here to show you what I'm talking about. And I'm going to walk you through what is going on in here. All right. Let me just first of all indent this properly. Okay. So the whole point here is that we want to display the text you're very welcome, but using the p tags. Actually, you know what? Let me change this to h1 just so we have some consistency. All right. So we want to display you're very welcome, but in an h1 format, but it's going to be with the use of a function. So right here, let me just go ahead and save this first of all, just to confirm that it actually works. So let me go back in here, refresh the page, and there it is. You're very welcome. Okay, let's go back to the code right now. What's going on in here? I've created a function called print greeting. It's PHP, so I have my opened PHP tag right there, function, and then the name of the function. Now, because we intend to introduce HTML code, we have to indicate that, hey, HTML code is coming up next. That's where this opening curly brace comes in. It's the signal that coming up next is going to be HTML code. However, because we need to close the PHP tag before we can introduce the HTML code, that's why we had to close it right here. You can see we've closed the PHP tag, but because of this curly brace, the function knows that, hey, coming up next is going to be HTML code. That is the HTML code right there. And now because we have the opening curly brace, we need to close it. And because we've already ended PHP because we had to introduce our HTML tag, we have to open up PHP again. Now close the curly brace. We have the closing curly brace. And now finally close the function. And then down here, we simply called the function. Don't worry, we'll cover functions more later on in the course, so don't worry about that. But that's basically one scenario where you will have HTML code inside of your PHP code, and you have to use the curly brace and the closing braces to include HTML within PHP. There are so many other situations where you will have HTML and PHP being combined, but these two are the usual, are the two most common. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next class. All right, so let's first of all take a look at the conditional statements with PHP. And as a WordPress developer, you will come across conditional statements every time. They're very common, and I thought that it will be best before we talk about functions to actually talk about the else, if, and conditional statements. So right here in PHP, I do have the documentation pulled up, and you can see right now it's very simple, very easy to understand. Conditional statements basically just check to see if one condition has been met, and then if that condition has been met, do something. Otherwise, if the condition was not met, then you can do something else. In this case right now, you can see a very simple example. You have two variables, A and B, and we've set the very first condition. If A is greater than B, if the value of A is greater than B, then echo, say A is bigger than B. And now we're saying else if, which means we're now providing a second condition. If the value of A is equal to the value of B, then echo A is equal to B. And then the third condition, else if these first two are not met, which means that if the value of A is not greater than the value of B, and if the value of A is not equal to the value of B, then obviously the value of B should be greater than the value of A. So echo A is smaller than B. Very simple to understand. And let me just stress right now that you don't need to have an else if statement. You can just run one single condition. If this is this, then do this. You don't have to set the alternative for, okay, but what if the first condition was not met? What should PHP, what should WordPress do? If you don't set that, then WordPress will simply not do anything. So I'm going to give you some examples in here directly now from WordPress. We do have something called the conditional tags. These are tags that have been created by WordPress already that help to check if certain conditions have been met. So let me just give you a few of them. Right now you can see it checks to see if it's the home page, if we're on the front page, you scroll down, you check to see if it's an admin. Let's scroll down a bit more. It checks to see if a post is sticky, if comments are active, and so on. You can check for so many different kinds of conditions. If a particular page is in the category with the ID number 9, and so on. Like, I would encourage you to take a look at the page because you have so many conditions. However, I want to give you an example, and the conditional tag we're going to work with is the has post thumbnail. This checks to see if a post has a featured image attached to it. Now, over here, for my post, I do have an image right here. We can see the PHP featured image. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a conditional function that will check to see if my post has a featured image. And if it does, we're going to change the size with which the image is actually displayed. Now, if I was to go to my notepad file in here and I go to content-single.php, with the 2021 theme, we do have this function in here called the 2021 post thumbnail. This is the function currently displaying my featured image and my post. However, we're going to change it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now to remove this function. Okay, now if I save this, if we go back to the post and I refresh right here, you can see right now the featured image is no longer shown because I have removed the function. Cool. Let me now go ahead and grab this function I wrote earlier. Let me copy that. Let's now go back to my notepad file, and right here, I'm going to go ahead now and paste this. And what do we have here? All right, check this out. I have created my conditional statement or my conditional function in here that says if, and now the actual conditional tag has post thumbnail. So first of all, I'm checking to see if my post has a thumbnail, then display the thumbnail. This condition, this template tag right here, the underscore post underscore thumbnail, is what is used to display the featured image of your post. Just like the underscore title is used to display the title, the underscore accept is used to display the accept. The underscore post underscore thumbnail is the template tag pre-built in WordPress that will display your featured image. Now, the post underscore thumbnail template tag can accept the size of the image that we want to use. In this case right now, I have set the size to medium. So now I'm telling WordPress that, hey, if my post has a featured image, display the featured image but with the size medium. I'm going to go ahead now to save this. And if we go back to my website, refresh the page, now you can see we have the image now been displayed in the medium size. Now, please keep in mind that by the size, we're not necessarily talking about how large the image is going to be. The reason why is because with the 2021 theme, it has been designed in such a way that the featured image is going to occupy a certain width and height. As such, the size with which we're displaying the image will determine how clear or how blurred the image is going to be. Now, because we're displaying the image with the medium size of 300 pixels by 300 pixels, which is the default with WordPress, WordPress is now going to stretch the image to occupy the initial width and height that has been set by the theme. That's why it's looking very, very blurred. But guess what? If I go back in here and I change medium to an even smaller size, which is thumbnail, which I believe is 150 by 150. That's usually the default. I think I misspelled thumbnail. Thumbnail, not thumbnail. Let me save that again. Now, if I go back, check this out. Okay, I'm going to refresh the page. And now, can you see it's even a lot more blurred now? It's even a lot taller right now because I've basically forced WordPress to stretch the image. That's why it's looking all very, very blurred right now. But that's not the whole point of this video. The point here is just to show you that we're actually able to change the size of the image. Now, if I go back in here and I change this now from thumbnail to large, okay, now the image is going to be a lot clearer because we're displaying it using the large size. Now, if I refresh, Now you can see that the image is now very, very clear because we're no longer stretching it with the use of the medium size or the thumbnail size. So that's basically a conditional statement right there. You will come across them in so many situations. And going back to my file right here, like even in the header.php, actually you don't have any conditional statements in there. If I come down here to my content-single.php file, right now you can see one conditional statement in here that says if and then is not singular. Notice you have this sign right there. Okay, this right here is the not value. So basically, by saying right now that if this page is not a singular page, then do something. Okay, so this is another symbol that you come across a lot with conditional statements. Now, let me also mention one thing real quick because it's important. You may have noticed that with this if statement, there is the end if condition right here. So basically, we're ending the conditional function. You don't always have to use the end if you're running the if statement, okay? It's not always necessary. However, for good practice, I would recommend that you always close your if statement. So in this case right now, up here, I will simply come back in here and say PHP and then end if, and there it is, had the semicolon and then close the PHP tag. It's good practice, but let me just mention that you're not always going to find developers who would always close every single one of their if statements. In my case right now, the reason why I did not close this initially was because within this block right now, I'm not running any other conditional statements. Like this is the only if statement in this block. However, if I was going to run another conditional statement within this block, I would have ended the first one. But like I said, it's often good practice to just end all your if statements and to avoid any potential issues with your code. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next class. Okay, so let's start talking about functions and how you can write your very own functions using PHP in WordPress. Now, previously we saw this particular function that I created called print greeting, and the whole job of this function was just to display the text "you are very welcome." And it's very, very straightforward. You have the function, and then you have the name of the function. You will have your brackets, and then you'll have the open curly brace to introduce HTML. You close it up, and then right here, this is where the function gets called. Okay, let me show you something else right here. If I go to php.net and then take a look at the function reference, right here you will see all the pre-built functions available with PHP. Now these can be used to do so many things, like, you know, check the day, today's date. It can check whether a user is logged in and so on. And then down here, if you scroll through, you begin to see the different kinds of extensions. Right here you have the date and time related extension. So if you want to do something with the time, this is where you'll have the available functions. Now, one of them is the date function. Very, very, very straightforward. It simply displays the date. Now, there are different ways how you could choose to display the date. So as an example, down here, you have access to the different examples. So if you said echo date and then in brackets you have L, this would simply print something like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you wanted something different, like let's say Monday, 8th of August, 2005, and then the time, you would use something like this and so on. Okay, I'm gonna go over to my notepad file in here. Let me grab this real quick. Go right here to my header.php, and I'm gonna go ahead now and open this up. Let me paste the code right there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm simply echoing today's date in my header. I'm gonna go ahead now and save this. Let's go back to the browser, go back in here, refresh the page, and there you go, Monday, 31st of May, 2021. Now, notice that I didn't have to create a function or anything like that. All I simply needed to do was just to use the actual PHP function directly, date. So this is from PHP directly, and I simply used echo to print out the date in this particular format. So that's one way how you can create your own functions, or rather use functions directly from PHP. But what if you wanted to use your own functions, right? Here's the thing. With WordPress, we already have access to a very wide variety of PHP functions. Now, if you go to developer.wordpress.org and then you search for theme functions, right here you will have a bit more explanation about functions.php file and things like that. Now, the whole job of functions are like plugins. Plugins are used to perform certain kinds of actions on our website. You could have a plugin that does something very, very simple, and of course you could choose to install that plugin. But guess what? You could even write a function, your own function, that does exactly what that plugin is supposed to do. So in other words, if you're capable of writing your own functions, you will not need certain kinds of plugins. So as an example, take a look at this. All right, I'm going to open this up. Right here, you have your function reference under WordPress. Now, just like with PHP that has several pre-built functions, WordPress also has its own set of pre-built functions that you can use to either create your own new set of functions, or you can simply customize them. So right here under the function reference, you have access to plenty of functions. You have those under posts or custom post types, pages. So anything related to a page or a post and so on, you will have all the functions right here. And then under categories and tags, you have them right here as well. Let's scroll down. You can see so many. And then anything related to like the user, email address, user password, things like that, you will have them in here. You have your feed functions, and then you have anything related to comments, ping back, track back functions, and so on. You scroll all the way down here, you have theme related functions, and so on and so forth. Okay, with that being said, let's create a very, very simple function that will check to see whether a user is logged in or logged out. Now, right here, we actually have such a function which is called isUserLoggedIn. All this does is that it checks to see if a user is logged in or logged out, and then you can then do anything you want the function to do. So let me go over here to my file, and I'm going to grab this code real quick. Let's go back to our notepad file right here. I'm going to remove this. Let me paste this out here, and let me explain to you exactly what is going on in here. So what we have here is a very simple PHP code that checks to see if a user is logged in. And then if the user is logged in, we're going to echo welcome registered user. Else, if the user isn't logged in, just say welcome visitor. So this is what we refer to as a conditional statement, or a conditional function if you prefer. Basically, we're offering two alternatives. It's either the user is logged in, and if the user is logged in, then just say welcome registered user. But if the user is not logged in, then just say welcome visitor. I'm going to go ahead now to save this, and let's see what it's going to do. I'm going to go to my Firefox browser in here. Now, as you can see right now, I'm logged out. I'm not logged in. So let me refresh, and you can see it says welcome visitor because I'm not logged in. However, if I go to my Chrome browser, all right, you can see I'm actually logged in right now as the admin. If I refresh, now it will say welcome registered user. So you can see right now that the function actually works properly. Now going back to WordPress right here, there are so many functions in here that will allow you to do so many things. You can check to see if the user is using a mobile device or not. You can print out the title of a post. You can check to see if a post has a featured image and so on. So what we've done in this particular video is just very simple functions to do certain things. Join me in the very next video where we'll now take a look at more advanced functions. Let's now take a look at some more advanced functions, and specifically hooks, actions, and filters. What exactly are these? A hook is a very generic term that is used to describe a location or a spot where one piece of code can interact with another piece of code. Now, don't worry, you will see what I'm talking about in just a moment. Now, when it comes to hooks, there are generally two types, all right? You have actions, and then you have filters. An action literally acts, it does something. So let's say, for example, you wanted to create a scenario where once you've published a new post on your website, you want WordPress to send out a tweet to all your subscribers. The action of sending out that tweet is an action, right? So basically, that's what actions are. And right here, if you go to the WordPress Codex and you search for the action reference, in here, you will see a whole list of different actions that have already been created by WordPress, which will do something for you at a particular point. So say, for example, you wanted to do something before the theme is loaded. This would, of course, be advanced stuff. But right here, you have the action called setup_theme. When you run this action, you would be able to do something before the theme is loaded. You can use this action, register a sidebar, to basically create sidebars and so on. But what about a filter? A filter is used to modify data before it is used or displayed on your browser. That's basically what filters are. So filters, they change things, they change stuff. In fact, a very easy way to describe actions would be they do stuff while filters change stuff. One other major difference between actions and filters is that an action will not provide you with any data to work with. Actions just act, they do their job and then they get out. Filters, on the other hand, will give you something, they'll give you a piece of data to work with before they now run the function. A classic example would be the typical excerpt that you have for WordPress. By default, I think it's about 50 words or 55 words that WordPress would use for your excerpt. If you wanted to change the number of words in your post excerpt, you would need to use a filter, because you need to get your hands on the excerpt first and then modify the number of words, and then you will now pass your modification back to the filter, which will then run. Let's take a look at some examples in here of an action and a filter. And right now, I've already written out a function, so let me just quickly grab that right here. And of course, we're going to go to our functions.php, because this is where we typically would add our actions and filters. So what is going on in here? By the way, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this, but another way of adding comments in your PHP file will just be to add the / 2 times, and then you can add your text or your comments. So what I'm trying to do here is that I am trying to add a statement that will appear on the front page, but then if it's not on the front page, don't do anything. So this is it right here. The function is called add promo text. That is the name of my function. And you can see right now, I've added the comment that says, if we're not on the home page, don't do anything. Otherwise, if it is not the front page, then I want you to return or print out hot promo is back again. So to take this a little bit further, I'm using echo to print out the statement hot promo is back again, but then we're also using the h2 tags to wrap it up to make it a little bit bigger. So once again, check this out. I am saying that my function is called add promo text, right? In fact, let me expand this just a little bit so you can see it a bit clearer. So once again, the name of the function is add promo text, okay? And the job of this function is to echo hot promo is back again only on the home page, because right now it says if we're not on the home page, don't do anything. Otherwise, if we are on the home page, then echo this out. That is the function. However, we now need to add it as an action, and that is the statement right here. In fact, you can actually even have this add action at the bottom. Okay, so sometimes you might see some developers adding the action first and then the function. In other cases, you'll have the function first and then the action. So we have this actual action or function itself called add action. And for add action, it requires two parameters. The first one is basically going to be the name of the action. In this case right now, it is after header. And then the name of the function, which in this case is add promo text. Fine. We've written out the function, we've added the action. But now, how do we actually execute this action? Keep in mind that just creating a function on its own doesn't necessarily mean that it will run. You need to call the function. You need to run the function yourself. So how are we going to run this? Well, let me go ahead and save this first of all. Okay. And then let me just quickly grab the code right here real quick. Do action. I'm going to go over to my header.php, and right here, this is where we want to print out the statement. So I'm going to say PHP. I'm going to paste the code, add my semicolon, and then I'll close the PHP code. This function right here, do action. This is now the function used to call out an action that we've already created. And in this case right now, the name of the action, going back to function.php, is what? After header. That is the name of the action. So right here, we are now telling WordPress to do the action called after underscore header. I'm going to go ahead now to save this. And let's see what the results are. Let's go back to WordPress, to my site. I'm going to refresh the page. And okay, so right now, okay, we are on the homepage. So it says hot promo is back again. However, if I was to go to the post for PHP for WordPress, you can see right now there is no hot promo is back again. Let's go to the archives page, for example. You can see it doesn't show up until we go back to the home page, and then it says hot promo is back again. So to give you a quick recap, this right here is the action that we've created called after header. And whenever you're adding an action, you need to first of all name the action, which is after header, and then you need to provide the function which you want the action to actually run. That function is add promo text, and this right here is the actual function. And then going to the header.php, this is where we want to call that action that we've created. And we need to do so, we need to use the function called do action, and then the name of the action. This right here is what you might call a hook, because now we are hooking our header.php to our functions.php via the action called after underscore header. That's basically an action at work. Okay, now let's go back and let's talk about filters. All right, now just like with actions, filters basically, not unlike actions, filters modify data. They change data before it's actually used or displayed on the browser. And just like with actions, you have access to a wide variety of different kinds of filters. And right here, you can see many of them. You have filters for pages, posts, image sizes, and so on. Let me give you a very, very quick example. Let's say we wanted to change the number of words in our excerpt. Right now, the default, I believe, is 55 characters. But let's say we wanted to make the excerpt only 4 characters. How are we going to do that? I want you to realize, first of all, that there is a function called the excerpt. This right here will display the post excerpt on its own. All right. Keep that in mind. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to a filter called excerpt length. This filter right here has been created by WordPress specifically for us to be able to use to modify the excerpt length. You can see right now it says it filters the maximum number of words in a post excerpt. Check this out. I'm going to go ahead and grab my code right here. Okay, let's go to our functions.php, and then down here, I'm going to paste that. What is going on in here? I have my function called my custom excerpt length. And check this out. I am returning 30 characters, 30 words. And now, just like with add action, I am adding my filter. And just like when you use the add action, you first of all need to provide the name of the filter we're working with, which is what? Excerpt length. This is the filter from WordPress that we're using called excerpt length. And then just like we do action, you now need to provide the name of the function that you're using to modify the excerpt, which is my custom excerpt length. However, unlike the action where we had to say do action and then provide the name of the action, because we already have a function called the excerpt, we don't need to do anything like that. All we need to do is just to call the excerpt. We've written out the function to modify the excerpt, so all we need to do right now is just to call the excerpt. And how do we do that? Let's go to our content-single.php, and right here, just below the title, I'm going to say PHP the underscore excerpt, pew pew, semicolon, and close. Let's go ahead now, save the file, and let's go back to our browser. Let's go to the page right here. Let's go now to the single page for PHP right here. And there it is. That is our excerpt right there in 30 words. Let's actually confirm that it's true. I'm going to go back, change 30 to 4. Okay, just to make sure that it's actually accurate. Let's save that. 4 is a lot easier to count than 30, so let's refresh. And there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is a filter in action. We use the filter again because we needed to get our hands on the excerpt first, and then we modify the number and then we sent it back. One other thing I want to mention is that when it comes to using actions or filters, we do actions, right? You do an action. This is the function. It's called do action. But for filters, we apply filters. So when you're going through your WordPress files, you will see apply filters in some locations, while you will see actions, you will see do action. You don't do filters or apply actions, you do actions and apply filters. There's a lot more to actions and filters, but at this point you have a basic understanding of how they work and what they are. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next class. So now let's talk about PHP variables and arrays and how they are used in WordPress. Now, think of a variable as a container that can store the value of something. That something could be a function, it could be text, it could be a number, it could be anything. Now, according to the documentation in here, variables are typically represented by the $sign. Now, I've always found that rather interesting. Like, why did they choose the dollar symbol as the sign for a variable? It's not important. That's a whole topic for another day. But usually you will have a variable that will start with the $sign, and then you will have the actual name of the variable. So that's how you can identify a variable. And there are different types of variables used in PHP. You have integers. Integers would be your numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3. You have string. String would be your text. You also have your Boolean variables, which would be true or false, and so on. Now, scrolling down here, you can see examples. The first example in here, you have variable var equaling Bob. So the value of the variable var is Bob. And then notice the second one in here that has the value of Joe. This variable here has the capital V. So please note that variable names are case sensitive. If one is small letter, the other one is a capital letter, those are two different variables entirely. So when you try to echo out these variables, you're going to have Bob and Joe. And in fact, let me give you a live example in here. I've already written out the code. So let me go over to my notepad. Let's just jump down in here, open up my PHP, dump the code, and then close the PHP. So what you have here right now is that I have created a variable called text. You can see the $sign right there. Text equals PHP for life. So this is a string variable, and I'm now echoing out the text. So instead of me writing echo PHP for life, I'm just simply echoing text, because text variable has the value of PHP for life. And of course, if I save this and I go back to my website right here and I refresh the page, up there, you're going to see PHP for life. So very, very straightforward. You can also assign functions to variables. I have another example in here I've written out. This is a function that we've taken a look at earlier, the one with the date. So let me just go ahead, open up my PHP tags again, dump the code, close it out there. So again, we've assigned the variable date to be equal to the function of date, the PHP function date, and then in brackets we have L, which means that it will represent the day of today, basically. I'm going to go ahead now to save this. And then if I go back to my website right there and I refresh the page, you can see that today is Thursday. So PHP for life and today is Thursday. So that's basically how variables function. Going back to the manual in here, they have so much more examples on how variables are used. But let's move on now to arrays, because this is actually the more interesting. So in here, according to the documentation, it says that array in PHP is actually an ordered map. A map is a type that associates values to keys. As an example, right now you have your array right here. You have the key, and then the key will have its value. You have the second key that will have its own value, and so on. Basically, think of an array as a particular function or a variable that has a set of attributes or characteristics. You can think of your regular text in your website, right? A text can have an array, and that array could be things like, okay, we want to have a specific color for this text. So that color right now would be a key, and then the color will have a value. Is it red? Is it blue? Is it green? You can have the font size. That font size could be the key. So the value could be 26 pixels, 30 pixels. It could have a font family, which would be Montserrat or Tahoma, and so on. That's basically what an array is. You will find arrays a lot in WordPress, and I do have several examples in here to show you. If I go to my functions.php, right here, this is the function to register a sidebar, right? So it's called 2021 widgets, and then this is the actual pre-built function register sidebar. But now note that we have the array, and in the array we now have several keys, which would be the name. For example, what is the name of the sidebar? Oh, the value is, it's called the footer. What is the ID? The ID is sidebar-1. What is the before title? We're going to wrap an h2 class before the title, and then wrap the closing h2 tag after the title, and so on. So right there, you have the array with the keys and then the values of those keys. I'm going to give you another example up here, and this one is actually very, very, very interesting right here. So you have this function called add theme support. This is a pre-built function with WordPress that allows you to add customization options to your theme. Now, in this case right now, we're adding the support for a custom background. I'm going to show you something very, very cool, because I want you to see how this actually works. If I go to customize, this is for the 2021 theme, just to remind you. If I go to customize right here, and we go to, my apologies, my internet is acting all weird again today. Okay, so if we go over to colors and dark mode, right here, do you see background color? We have the ability to customize the background color because of this function right here, add support for custom background color. Now look at this. We have the array default color is set to D1E4DD, which is kind of like a light shade of green. If I go back to my website right here, do you see the background color? This is the default, and if I click in there, what's the value? DE14DD. It is right here. But notice that down here, we have other colors that we can quickly choose. You have like the black color, you have another shade of black, you have like a pink and so on. All these values are right here. Do you see them? This is the black variable that has this value, dark gray has that value, orange has that value, and so on. So the thing is, as you begin to work with WordPress, you will come across variables and arrays. Arrays are very, very common. Open up your function.php of any theme and you will see them everywhere. Array, array, array. You will see the keys, and then you see the values of those keys. So that's it, a very brief introduction to the world of variables and arrays. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next class. No course about WordPress and PHP would be complete without talking about arguably the single most powerful function in all of WordPress, which is the WordPress loop. What exactly is this? I've got some books in here with me, and don't worry, I'm not trying to sell them to you. I have 3 books in here, right? And each of these books has its own title. They have their own author, their own number of pages, their own classification, and so on. Let's imagine that you were a librarian and it was your responsibility to record all this information about each and every one of these books. You could do it manually, but what if you could actually create a function or a program that could scan these books and then automatically put out the information that you want? That would be awesome, right? Now think of these books as your WordPress posts. Think of that program that can scan these posts and display the information as the WordPress loop. So the job of the loop is basically to go into your posts and then start picking out the information, the title of the post, the author of the post, the date of the post, and then we'll display it on your website. That's basically what the loop does. Now I do have another article in here, what the loop can display. It can display the next post link, the previous post link, the category of the post, the author, the content, the excerpt, the ID, the short link tags, title time. It also works with conditional tags as well. If this is the home page, then display this. If this is not the home page, do that, and so on. Now, let me open up my notepad file in here, and right here, if you open up your index.php, in fact, any WordPress theme, I don't care how sophisticated the theme is, you're going to have a loop in your index.php. And right here, this is the loop while have post. It starts from if have post. So basically, we're saying if the website has posts, and as long as it continues to have posts, then do this. Right now, you see this function called get template path. This is basically a function that links one file to another file. So we are linking the index.php right now to the content.php file, which is inside what you have here, your content-single.php file. So we're linking the index.php file in here to this particular file right here. So once the loop has started in the index.php, this is where we now begin to output the information. So we have the title, you have the thumbnail, you have the content, and so on. Now, of course, you can customize the WordPress loop to display certain kinds of information. You can tell the loop that, hey, instead of displaying all the posts, display posts only from this particular category. Instead of displaying posts, why not display my custom post type of movies? In fact, I've written an example in here just to show you real quick how it might look like. So let me just dump that right here real quick. So right now you can see we've done what we've created a variable called args. I could also call this loop, custom loop, and so on. But for the purposes of this video, I've named my variable args, and this variable now has an array. We talked about arrays previously, and look at the keys. The first one right here is the post type. So now I'm telling the loop that, hey, pick the information from the post type of movies. Now we're not dealing with the regular good old WordPress post, we're dealing with movies. And then for the category name, pick movies that are from the specific category of action movies only, right? And then post per page, that is in this loop, only display 3 movies. This would be how you can customize the WordPress loop. So again, the job of the loop is to go into your posts or whatever custom post type that you've set it to focus on, and then begins to pick out the information that you want, the number of posts, the category of the posts, and so on. And then using our template tags like the title, the excerpt, the content, we can then dictate what information the loop should display. That's basically how the loop works. There's of course so much more to the WordPress loop, which I will go into of course in my main WordPress theme development course. But for now, I think I've been able to give you a brief introduction to the WordPress loop and what it does and how it actually works. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next class. Well, so that's it. We've come to the end of this course, Learn PHP for WordPress. And from the bottom of my heart, I sincerely hope that you enjoyed and found the course useful. If you did, please do consider leaving a review for the course. It really would help me a lot. And if you're interested, like I've mentioned in the previous video, I do have a full course that will teach you how to become a WordPress developer. So if you're interested, be sure to check out the course. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about anything I covered in this course, be sure to let me know and I'll do my best to answer them as soon as I can. My name is Alex. It's been a pleasure. Take care of yourself and I'll talk to you next time. Cheers.